Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Kathy Barberi. I am one of the executive directors for BNI Atlanta. This is our Monday mugs, and our focus for this month is how to beat the summer slowdown and get more clients. And our good friend and best-selling author, Brian Hilliard, is joining us for the month. And each week, he is reviewing tips on how to beat the summer slowdown and get more clients through referrals. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and keep in mind if you have any questions or discussion points, make note, because a little bit later he'll open that up for some discussion and questions. And Brian, I'll mute out and let you take over.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kathy, and absolutely, thank you guys for having me. We are going to definitely talk about how to beat the summer slowdown. Let me put this up here so everybody can see it. There we go. We're going to talk about how to beat the summer slowdown and get more clients. As Kathy said, I actually lived in the Atlanta area for quite some time, moved out to the Raleigh market, North Carolina. I'm in a city called Fayetteville, which is about an hour south of Raleigh, and still doing, a lot of good stuff with Kathy, and obviously wrote the book with Dr. Meisner, was a director consultant as well. So feel like I got some good stuff and some insight as it relates to beating the summer slowdown and just getting clients in general. But obviously, we're going to talk about that from the perspective of BNI and your referral groups. So with that said, let's jump right in here. You are in the right spot if you have not had any formal sales training in previous jobs. If you are looking for some ways to get business without being pushy, salesy, or otherwise over the top. And if you're open for some ideas on building a business by referral and getting clients, even when it looks like everyone is running off to the beach. And last but not least, you are in the right spot if you do not have a ton of time, but you do want to get stuff done as quickly as possible. We are going to cover that. Now, some people have heard me speak before. I just want to clear this up. Some people have heard me speak before. What we'll be doing is we'll be covering some of the similar points that we covered from earlier. We'll be covering some different points. Obviously, we'll be opening up for some questions. So just giving you a feel for what you can expect. All right, so with that said, let's continue to go and talk about what you will learn. We're going to talk about 3 ways to beat the summer slowdown and get more clients. So let's face it, the summertime is super busy for everyone. You'll notice that is the barbecue. We got all kinds of good stuff. Looks like some mushrooms and zucchini over there and a steak of some sort. I don't know. You also got the kids out of school. You got the 4th of July holiday. You've got the pool party, and you've got Brian playing golf, which, by the way, I am going to be redeeming a birthday present that I got for playing a little bit of golf. Actually, I'm going to go hit some balls probably later on this week. So the point is that a lot of people are doing a lot of different things. Most of them are not business oriented, which in and of itself actually isn't a problem, but you just have to understand that, and you got to work through that, and that's obviously what we're going to talk about. Now, before we get into exactly how to do that, like I said, some of you guys have heard me speak before, some of you have not, maybe some of you have met me, maybe this is the first time. Totally fine. My name is Brian Hilliard, and as you can see, I actually grew up in the Connecticut area. I went to Duke, actually, down here in North Carolina. It was one of those deals where I was like, wow, there's a whole part of the country where it turns out you don't have to shovel snow. So put me down for the Southeast. I lived in Atlanta for about 15 years. I've moved out here, like I said, into the Raleigh market, started my own business back in 2001. That, friends and neighbors, is a Mark Victor Hansen with a young, effervescent, maybe, Brian on the right-hand side. My smile has gotten better, but that was kind of like, I don't know, the 1.0 version. You'll notice that it actually did get better, but I was excited. Mark came, he's Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I'm trying to remember the other guy he wrote it with. Mark Victor Hansen and somebody else. I should look that up. Mark Victor Hansen is who that is when he came into Atlanta. After I started my coaching practice, I went down and spent a lot of time down in Houston. That's Tom Britton on the right-hand side there. He's one of the, he was at the time executive director of the Greater Heights Chamber of Commerce, if I'm not mistaken. And that really worked out because of the relationships and things that we've got. you'll notice things started picking up for me. That's the Buckhead Business Association, the BBA. I don't know if that's still around. Probably is. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. But that's the Buckhead Business Association, with me talking about networking, I believe, talking about networking, referrals, and things like that. After things started getting rolling, everyone started coming out of the woodwork. That was actually with me with old St. Nick, actually at the World Congress Center down in Atlanta. And that's, to be honest with you, excuse me, when things really click. You'll notice that signing books and things like that. Generating business doesn't have to be hard. Generating business doesn't have to be hard. It's one of those deals where I tell people that running your own business, and I'm going to use that term. I know we have entrepreneurs. I know we have some sales folks on board, but if you don't mind me using that term, running your own business, doing your own thing doesn't have to be hard, but there is some processes, and there are some do's and don'ts, okay? And to be honest with you, I became obsessed with finding ways to attract more clients even during the summertime, all right? So, because for me, I was worried about running out of leads. I was worried about not having a formal sales background. This slide always surprises people. I don't know what they think I've done in the past. It was not. I didn't have a formal sales background. I did read a very good book when I got started. It's called Solution Selling by Michael Bosworth. I also borrowed Guerrilla Marketing as well from a friend of mine. Both of those were very good books, and really, the former shaped my entire sales approach and strategy towards sales. The latter actually shaped my entire coaching program, at least in its infancy, and how I went about and looking at things. So I didn't have a formal sales background. I was concerned about being too salesy or pushy or over the top. And what I realized, though, is that if you want to get more, you need to be more first. All right, that's super, super important. You talk about a framework. I've talked in the past that this actually, I would consider this to be a worldview of mine. If you want to get more, you need to be more first. A lot of people want to have a conversation around, getting more money, having a better marriage, getting into a better relationship, having better kids, doing all of these things. And really, if you want those things to happen, you need to be a better husband, be a better parent, be a better business owner, be a better learner. When you do, be a better marketer. When you do those, it's funny how the getting comes. So here's how I manifested that in my own business. I realized, and I said this, if I wanted more clients in the summertime, I needed to be more of a marketer. I realized I needed to be more of a referral generator. I realized I needed to be more of a catalyst within my BNI chapter. We'll definitely talk about that. I needed to get more done throughout the day. Okay. And most of all, I realized that if I wanted to get a steady stream of business during the summertime, that I needed to do all of these things to help be more successful, which will help me get more clients. All right. So fast forward to today. That's Dr. Ivan Misner. That is his stoic Dr. Misner, by the way. That was when we were down in Houston, actually. We did a presentation together. And, I speak at different places all over the country, including, as you can see, with Dr. Misner. I've written a best-selling book, Networking Like a Pro, along with 4 other books. So you'll see that as well. This is all about, I lost a podcast and all that good stuff, and having a really good year in terms of higher paying coaching clients. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is Mike Barberi on the right-hand side. That is myself in the middle, and that would be Scott Galloway on the left. We actually wound up with the person who's not pictured. His name is Jeff. We won the golf tournament probably about 3 years ago. Had a great time. All right, so let's jump in. One of the first things that I like to tell people in terms of getting clients during the summertime, and if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about this. I think this is, me personally, I think this is super important, okay? But one of the things that I talk about a lot is this idea of re-engaging past clients, all right? So re-engaging past clients. Frank Kern talks about this. If you ever get a chance to listen in on some of his stuff, it's very good. Frank talks about the idea, and it's not him the first one, by the way, but he does do a good job. which is the idea of low-hanging fruit. And in a business world, low-hanging fruit are usually people who have spent money with you, right? People who have spent money with you, people who have pulled out their checkbook, people who, are on board with who you are and what you're all about. So the summertime for me is when I'm re-engaging my past clients. I recommend you do the same. Now, what are we talking about when we say re-engaging? Well, we're having a light, casual conversation with these folks, okay? We're not trying to, get into this big old song and dance. And actually, I should probably precede this whole series segment with the point that I like to actually, so let me back up. I like to send a text to people first. I'm a text man when trying to set up these calls. So like what I'll do is I'll say something as simple as, so let's say a past client. Oh, and this is another important point. I go back like about 12 months, 6 to 12 months. You can go back 18, but I wouldn't go too far back when I talk about clients. So I'll go back like 12 months. And I'll be like, okay, hey, it's Brian. We did some work together on XYZ. Just want to, catch up, see how things were going. If you had a quick 15 minutes, what does your calendar look like over the next couple of weeks? Like, that's it. Here in the United States, we get so focused on not looking like we're trying to be salesy. We get so focused on looking like we don't want to, overwhelm somebody. We get so focused on what everyone thinks about us, when it turns out no one is thinking about us. They're thinking about themselves. But that's not how we think. So what happens is we get in our own way. So I tell people, and I used to do that. So I tell people, listen, send a text, okay? Send a text. I'm actually creating a client. No, that's not true. I've already created a client hit list. I'm creating another hit list today where I'm going to do something similar, okay? And I just create a hit list and send a text, all right? So then you get on the phone and you have a nice, light, casual conversation. Here's how I do it. I'll say something like, hey, I know we talked about, or we've worked on this. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing. Or, you might do something else. Say, hey, listen, I know, whatever. Essentially, the formula is I want to, just want to touch base, catch up, tell me what's going on in your business life. All right. I personally ask about progress, like I said, that they've achieved in the area that you've worked with them on. And if appropriate, and this is important, if appropriate, make an offer to talk again. Now, what that essentially means, okay, is we are catching up with these people. We are catching up with them. We are seeing what's going on. And if an opportunity exists, we are going to make an offer. An offer to do work together? No, an offer to talk again. So like, let me give you something that I will specifically say. I'll be like, hey, listen, tell me a little bit about, what's going on. Tell me a little bit about your business. They're catching up. We're doing all these different things. And then we'll go back and forth. Maybe I'm adding some value. Maybe they're asking some questions. And you can do this of any industry. Like, I'm a coach by trade, but you can do this as a financial advisor. You can do this as an insurance person. Tell me what's been going on in your life. Tell me how you've been doing. You can do this really in any, in most circumstances. And then they may ask me some questions or do some other stuff. And then what I'll say is, I add some value. And I might say, hey, listen, if you'd like, what we can do is maybe we can talk a little bit later on. It sounds like, you've got some good stuff and you've got some good questions. What I can do is I can talk to you a little bit about, obviously we've done some work together already. We can talk about, maybe doing some additional work. I've got a class or coming up or this or that. That's one option. If it looks like that they're actually going to do some work with you, maybe. The other option is if it's a referral partner. You might say, hey, listen, you know what? A big part of what I do is build my business through referrals. And what I always tell people is if they know of somebody who, might be able to do that, that would be awesome. Why don't we do this? Why don't we sit down, maybe have some coffee or get together again over the phone, and let's talk about maybe putting a list together for each other and see what we can do to really flesh out how we can refer each other some business. Obviously, you've worked with me. You've experienced my, service, and I have no problems returning the favor. Would you like to do that? So the offer could work either way. The point is that you're engaging people who already have, some contact with you, some connection. Okay, so that is point number one. As Kathy said, we'll be opening up for some questions as well in a little bit. I'm going to do point number two, and then I'll open up for some questions, and then I'll finish up with point number three. Okay, All right. The second deal, as it relates to getting more clients this summer, I told you we would talk about the get more, be more. Being more of a catalyst was the word I used in terms of generating more referrals for yourself and others within your BNI business. And this is all about inviting. I would have put the fourth time, but that's too much, right? So invite, right? The point is that you want to make sure that you're inviting people to your chapter. It's a great way to be able to grow your business. People, sometimes, I know we've had some, I know that there's been a culture that's a little bit different than what we've had now. And I know that maybe there's been a perception based on that culture, and probably rightfully so, that there was some ulterior potential motives, or maybe there was a different agenda at play. I'm not going to speak to that, but I will say that the culture that Kathy and Mike are implementing now is one of inclusion, one of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. And inviting is a big way to be able to help both you and the chapter be successful. And I want to make a little bit of an illustration because I'd like to introduce you to somebody. That person right there is James Harden. Now, I am a big basketball fan. James Harden actually won the MVP award for the NBA, which is the most valuable player. He wound up scoring like 32 or 33 points a game. James Harden actually was a first-round draft pick, third pick for the Oklahoma Thunder about 5 or 6 years ago, was involved in one of the worst trades, most lopsided trades in league history. Anyway, he finds himself on the Houston Rockets. Now, let me tell you a little bit about James Harden. James Harden is very good offensively, and I mean super good. First of all, he's like 6'5", 6'6". That on the right-hand side is Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is in a good defensive stance, and Damian Lillard's no joke either when it comes to playing and doing things. James Harden is very, very good offensively. Now, from this position, here's what James does. One of two things. Number one, he will drive, and then he will do what's called a step back. He is so quick that he will step back and wind up getting an open shot, and you as a defender will look like this poor gentleman here. I don't know who that is. Or number two, he will drive to the free throw. He will drive to the basket, and he will wind up getting a foul, in this case by Rodney Hood, and he will wind up getting to the free throw line where he's a 90% free throw shooter. Now, the question is, what does James Harden have to do with growing your business and building your business through BNI? Well, what happens is your success as a business is predicated on a few things. It's predicated on the relationships you have, the services you provide, and your ability to communicate your value proposition to a buying market. To put it a different way, the more that you can get to the basket, using the basketball analogy, the more that you can invite people, putting it back to BNI, the more times you are out in front and engaging your business, your message, your discussion. People sometimes say, they're like, oh, well, when I invite, I feel like I'm not really growing my business. Yeah, you are. What's happening is you are engaging in an activity that helps you, in this point, like I just said before, build the relationships you have. You are talking about the services you provide. And in that BNI chapter, in that framework, in that approach to building your business through referral, you are absolutely putting yourself in a position where good things will happen. And that's why you mentioned here. Where BNI comes in is the relationships that you have, okay? You can invite prospects. Kathy, I know, talks about this. You could invite clients. Again, something everyone talks about. You could invite your existing networking contacts. These are people who you've had a relationship with, or maybe even not that much, and you're talking to them, you're engaging them, you're moving yourself forward, and essentially, it's pretty straightforward. Inviting to your chapter equals getting better relationships, which leads to you getting... I'm going to have to ask somebody to mute there, Kathy. I think we have somebody who's
I thought it was because I was on the phone.
No, I don't know what to do. It won't connect.
Hey, we need a little... So they either go to your prospects, you're inviting for your clients, or you're inviting your existing networking contacts, because what happens is they are people who are in your network. And guess what? it's not mutually exclusive, right? By you inviting people to your chapter, you are putting yourself in a position to have those relationships furthered and deepened. And guess what? That helps you and the rest of the chapter. Okay? And it gets back to the point that I said before. You might just wind up going and re-engaging your past clientele and inviting them to the chapter. Like, that might be your strategy for the rest of the summer. And that's totally fine. All right? So that is what we are doing. We are getting a shot one way or the other, okay, and move that forward. Now, I'm going to open up for some questions here in a second, but I'm also going to say something you've probably never heard on a webinar before, all right? And it is this. What I'd like you to do is to pull out your phones real quick. If you have them, obviously you're on the phone now, or if you just go to a different page or whatever, pull out your phones for a quick second and log into your Facebook account, all right? Real quick, pull out your phones, and then we'll open it up for some questions as well. Pull out your phones real quick, log into your Facebook account, and what I'd like you to do is, there's a couple of ways that you can kind of stay connected with yours truly. One of the things that we have is we have a Facebook group. It's called Building Your Client Pipeline. So if you go up into the search bar, you'll see the left-hand side there, right over here, it says Building Your Client Pipeline. What you need to do is you put that in and then go to the groups over here. It's a free group, by the way. Building a Client Pipeline, and what it does is it's run by yours truly. We talk about different ways to be able to get more leads, close more deals, build your business by referral. That's the first thing, all right? So put in there, put yourself down as an invite, and when we're done with this call here today, I'll go through them, and we'll get you into the community, okay?
Hey, Brian, I actually just typed that link into the chat bar as well. So if anyone wants to click on it.
Oh, yes. Man, good adjustment, Kathy. That way we don't have to fool around with that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're searching for Building a Client Pipeline. We're in there. All right. Second thing is, if you want to grab some coffee, and that's the virtual kind, because obviously I'm not there. But if you want to grab a little virtual one-on-one, I have no problems with that. You can go to, and Kathy, if you don't mind, if you could put that link in the chat box, that would be nice.
Yes, I will. Mm-hmm.
What we can do is that will be a little one-on-one, about 15, 20 minutes. We can talk a little bit about yourself, your business, what it is you're doing. I've written a book with Dr. Meisner on networking like a pro. I think a lot of you guys have that. If you have questions about the book, if you want to talk about some different things, not a problem. This is just kind of my way to kind of stay connected, to engage people. You can see that at www.brianhilliard.youcanbook.me. Okay, it's pretty long, but Kathy's typing it in. And that's me of Barley as well, the dog. Barley is a 55-pound Shiba Inu, and he is a terrific little creature. So with all that, let me open it up for some questions, and then we'll cover our final point. And then we will be on the move, get you guys back on with your day. Any questions or thoughts or anything that people want to bring up while you've got me on the phone? I think we might need to unmute too, Kathy. I don't know if you did that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm multitasking here. And not very quickly. Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone, so stop singing in the background unless you're really good. Hold on just a second. Okay, so I've unmuted everyone. Anyone have a question or comment for Brian?
Brian, this is Tanya.
Yep. Hey, Tanya.
Hello. So I'd be curious to hear how do you make an invitation? You know, we all have our own kind of communication style, and one of the things I hear from a lot of members who are maybe not having the success they want with inviting is they're sometimes unsure about how to make that ask without sounding like they're recruiting.
Right. Good question, Tanya. I think there's 2 points I'd like to make with that. First off, it gets back to my original point where I think and I'm not speaking for you or for them, I'm just making a general statement, that I think sometimes we get into a situation where we overthink it and we wind up making it more complicated than it needs to be. you know, when I tell people that I'm going to go, like, for example, I wound up watching Body of Lies, actually, was on Netflix the other day. And it's a really, really great movie. It's actually with Russell Crowe and Leonardo DiCaprio. Talks about the intelligence agencies and how we're trying to fool around in the Middle East and do a bunch of things. And I tell people if they ever get a chance to watch it on Netflix, they absolutely should. It's called Body of Lies. Now, you see how I just went through that real quick? I just recommended the movie. I made an offer based on my experience, and I also attached a value proposition to it. If you like this kind of movie, you might want to check it out. I think what happens is a lot of people make inviting, and really sales in general, but inviting in particular, since obviously that's what you brought up, they make it harder than it needs to be. Okay? So what I would be saying is, this is me. I would be saying, hey, listen, you know, if you'd like, I've got a networking group, or you can say referral group if you want. I've got a networking group where we pass referrals to other like-minded entrepreneurs and sales folks. If you'd like to come as my guest, you're more than welcome to. We're actually going to be meeting tomorrow, you know, next week on Tuesday morning. Like, my mom told me a while back, turns out my mom was right, I would say my mother was right on 90% of what came out of her mouth during my time growing up. Okay, maybe 95. And one of the things that she said was that you cannot take on other people's baggage. She actually said you can't take on other people's monkeys. And what she meant by that, my interpretation of what she meant by that here, is that a lot of times we get so focused on what other people are going to think, and a lot of times that's not determinant on what we actually did. I've had people who they try to judge me based on their own baggage. Okay, therapists call that shadow boxing with your past, when you actually have a past issue that triggered in the present, and then it elicits a reaction that's very different than what it should. Okay, I don't take on other people's baggage. I've got plenty of my own baggage. So when I'm inviting, Tanya, I understand that people, you know, I recognize that people don't want to take it the wrong way, and I make sure that they don't. I try to, but I don't let it immobilize me to the point where I don't, and I'm not saying you do or others don't, but I don't let it immobilize me to the point where I'm so consumed with what other people think. I just say, here's what I got, here's what we're doing. If you'd like to come, you could come as my guest. Just like I would recommend Body of Lies, or actually Trader. Saw that last night. That was Don Cheadle, and that was very good too, by the way.
Okay, and to that point, I think a lot, this is Kathy, by the way, I think a lot of folks, whether it's inviting people to come network to BNI or other organizations, it's taken the action to do the invite as well. I think a lot of us I'll get around to it, but we don't have a plan in place for introducing ourselves and building those relationships further.
Right.
And so I don't know if you have a suggestion there to help folks to keep it
That's
top of mind, set a goal, something like that, like, hey,
Well, I'm on the phone.
what's the value of taking the time to do it? Oh, it could be a good relationship.
Great point. That's a great point, Kathy. You hit two great points, in my opinion. Probably more. I just didn't hear them all. But the first one was the idea of, you're talking about a value proposition, okay? The value proposition is not always just a conversation about money. Actually, what I found, and I work with a lot of people to help them get higher paying clients without being pushy, okay? And I can tell you that the higher up the food chain you go in terms of coaching, yes, but the higher up the food chain you go in terms of clients in general, the more the conversation for your prospective client is about time spent versus money spent, okay? And actually, it's interesting because time spent is a harder value proposition to get across. You have to explain to people why they should wind up spending time with you. So, you know, Kathy, you said in the past, you know, we have a position that's open if you'd like to be able to take a look at. We're looking past referrals. That's if it's a straight up, hey, this is a person who might be a good potential person for you. But, you know, even if it's just, hey, I have no problems passing along and introducing you to some other people who I know who might be able to help you. I've actually said exactly that. So what you're doing is a value proposition. Now, the other thing is what's called a formalized referral strategy. I know that is, and Kathy, I know you guys have given people a copy of the book, so this is in no way a sales discussion. I just don't remember what chapter it's in, but it talks about a formalized referral strategy in the book. And, you know, the Reader's Digest version essentially is you have a marketing plan, you have a business plan. Why wouldn't you have a referral marketing plan? Why wouldn't you have a formalized approach that allows you to generate referrals? You know, like things like if you look at my emails, I have a PS where I actually ask for referrals. Or like I used to have a page on my website that was geared specifically for referrals. I don't do that as much as I used to because I do some other things now. But, you know, things like that where I'll tell you where I do have a formalized strategy. I'm on LinkedIn a lot and I'm engaging people and diving deep into my network. I was on LinkedIn an hour before I got on this call. You know what I mean? So there are things that you want to do where you're engaging people and moving them forward. And you want to make it, and this is the other thing, Kathy, and it's what you and Mike are doing. It's about culture. Okay? Just because this is not your business, anybody's business, mine business, you know, is not Coke or Disney or Microsoft or whatever, doesn't mean that you don't have a culture in your business. The culture in my personal business is very marketing, very relational, very proactive oriented. I am all about shooting first and asking questions later. Okay? So the question you got to look at is what's the culture in your own business and how can I make that and manifest that inside of BNI? Good points, Kathy. That's the formalized referral strategy. Good point. All right. Anything else before we're on the move? We can talk more. Like I said, anybody can. We can do a little 15, 20-minute, what I call, you know, get to know you one-on-one, talk about yourself, your business. All right. We're on the move. We got to tackle this last one here, which is build your marketing infrastructure. Okay. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine. I have maybe about 4 or 5 things that bother me, generally speaking. This is one of them. You have to have a marketing infrastructure. You have to have an infrastructure that allows you to better market yourself to others. And I think a lot of people get stuck in this regard, entrepreneurs in general. A lot of people get stuck in this regard because they get overwhelmed by all of the things going on in their lives, that in their business lives, and sometimes personal as well, that they make life harder on themselves when they don't need to. Okay, infrastructure. What's a marketing infrastructure? Well, it's your website. So let's deep dive into your website for a second. First of all, if you don't have a website, immediately leave this call. Like stop, hit stop, leave this call, go to either Bluehost or GoDaddy and get yourself a domain name with an accompanying hosting. The whole thing will cost you $20. And then if you use the hosting going forward, it'll be anywhere from $5 to $10 going forward. Okay? Get yourself a website. It needs to have the following. A little bit about your business, obviously, which includes your bio. It needs to have some type of service component to it. It obviously needs to have, you know, if you want, you can put like a blog on it if that's applicable, which is good for most professional services companies. A blog is really important. Those types of things, you need to have your website really looking good. Okay? That is an infrastructure. That is the first place people go. People think they're being, let me look this up. All they're doing is going to where I want them to go. Okay? For me, I have my website, brianhilliard.com. I have a speaking site that's geared for that. Okay? Great little site. I enjoy it. Okay? So that's the one. And I also have different blogs, which we'll get into in a second here, because it's related to the second point, which is your online newsletter. Now, if you do not have a newsletter that goes out on a consistent basis, I'm going to really seriously help you consider that you reconsider that. I would say for 90% of the industries, that is a really good idea. I know for insurance and financial advisors, you guys have some compliance issues, but you want to make sure that you can get through that and get out some content. Your newsletter, I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. Your newsletter is a great way to affect your brand and to affect your business outside of just a one-to-one meet people, see people, talk to people approach. There's nothing wrong with meet people, see people, talk to people, but you also want to have something, a newsletter when it's getting out there. We're talking about content. That is the gift that keeps on giving because people can share it. And that was actually a point that I made on a blog post. I was actually commenting on someone the other day, where having good content going out there, it allows people to share it and it allows people to do stuff in a way that they wouldn't normally do otherwise. So like if I heard that XYZ is a good person or a good coach or a good realtor or whatever, I would be more inclined to share a good article with a potential referral than I would to call the realtor and say, hey, you might want to talk to Sally Sue because she might be a good referral. Okay. Online newsletter is great. I'd recommend MailChimp as a free service. And then last but not least, a contact management system. This, in my mind, is non-negotiable. The only thing that is more non-negotiable than a contact management system, a CMS, is your website. But I think they're 1 and 2. I personally use a company called Less Annoying CRM. They are terrific. It's a $10 a month conversation. And what they do is it has a calendaring feature. It has a task manager. It has a tickle feature, right? So you could put it down. It comes back up, remind you. You can create pipelines. You know, it really, really lets you see what it is that you do and how you can be effective and do some of the things with folks. I use it all of the time. Less Annoying CRM, highly, highly recommended, especially, Kathy, we talked about invites and we talked about staying on top of things and referral partners. It's a great little system to be able to do that. If you want to talk more about that with me, we can. You can talk about any of these things more if you want, okay? But the point is you want to make it easier for yourself to stay connected and to build relationships with people, because when business is hard, this is not easy. This is not a walk in the park, okay? This is hard. I always make that comparison, you know, in professional sports. There is not a big difference between the Golden State Warriors, who have won 3 championships in a row, and the Charlotte Hornets, who have not done anything in the last 10 years. It is not that big a difference. It's like about maybe 10 games during the course of an 82-game regular season, and over 6 months, it comes down to 10 games. The level of margin of error is very, very small. But what you can control in a business environment is exactly what you can control in a sports environment. You can control the level of effort that you put in. You can control the environment that you have around you. You can control your mindset, which is a whole other conversation that maybe we'll get into at another point in time. So if you want to keep doing what you're doing, then you will keep getting what you got. But if you want to move forward and you want to stay connected, join our Facebook group. Like I said, that's Building Your Client Pipeline. Kathy put that down. Or if you want, let's do some coffee. Let's grab the virtual coffee mug, and we can do that right there, brianhilliard.youcanbook.me. All right? So that's what we've got. We are good to go. If you have any other questions, obviously we can, but I didn't want to keep you guys too long. I appreciate it, Kathy. Good stuff.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll talk to you guys next week for sure. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.